Season 1 of The Simpsons may have not been one of the show's best seasons by any stretch of the imagination, but it did show a lot of the promise that would later be paid off in the seasons to come. But regardless, the first season of The Simpsons was a revolutionary thing. Coming right in the middle of the revival of animation, thanks to the success of The Little Mermaid and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, The Simpsons would later spark new primetime animation shows in the early 90s that would try to mimic the success of the show, but we'll delve into those once we get into Season 3, seeing as that season, 1991 and 1992, was the start of that trend. Although CBS had been having like specials, Peanut specials, and they even tried to put Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in primetime for a little bit. And they even had the first episode of Tiny Toon Adventures, another revolutionary show from that time, from the 1990s, in the world of animation. But like I said, we'll delve into those when we get to the start of Season 3. Fox had a major hit on their hands, successfully pairing The Simpsons with In Living Color on Sunday nights in its first season. Fox was slowly but surely building a big lineup of shows that people were turning to, not just The Simpsons and In Living Color, but, this was the year Beverly Hills 90210 premiered. They had success with Married with Children. They got more success from that after the controversy with Terry Rakolta. Cops was a success. America's Most Wanted. 21 Jump Street was a success, even though this was kind of in its dwindling years. The Simpsons was their biggest success by far. It was their first series to land in the top 30 rated shows of the season, just barely making the list at number 30. And it was so successful that for Season 2, Fox tried a bold and daring move by moving The Simpsons to Thursday nights at 8 p.m.
They're back.
Oh, what a glorious day!
With a brand new show.
Take one and pass the rest back.
Test. Oh. Everyone knows you're faking it, Bart.
And a whole new season.
Bart, did you read the book?
Mrs. Krabappel, I am insulted. Is this a book report or a witch hunt?
The laughs start all over again.
Oh, please, call me Papa. Little ketchup for your buns, Papa?
Ooh. The Simpsons, Thursday at 8 on Fox 5.
Cowabunga!
That means putting it in direct competition with not only another very successful show, but one of the most popular comedy shows of all time. Yep. Fox was so confident in The Simpsons' success that they were about to enter The Simpsons' second season, their first full season, going up against the number one series on television at the time, The Cosby Show. The move was so controversial that not only did critics and audiences feel confused, but even the people working behind the scenes of the show weren't too fond of the idea, with many of the producers, including James L. Brooks, saying that they were against the move. The show had been in the top 10 while airing on Sundays, and they felt the move would destroy its ratings. He commented by saying that suddenly a show that was a hit is fighting for its survival. We're not fighting Cosby, we just want to get healthy ratings. There have been 2 weeks of my life when a show I was associated with was number one in the ratings, and on Sunday night, we had a chance to be the number one show in the country. I don't think we have a chance on Thursday night. And throughout the summer, several news outlets published stories about the supposed Bill versus Bart rivalry and heavily hyped up the first episode of the second season. And several critics predicted that the premiere would do considerably worse in the ratings than The Cosby Show did. However, when the numbers came out, they were actually very, very good. The Simpsons got 18.4 million people tuning in, with a 29% share of its audiences, only finishing second behind The Cosby Show by just 100,000 viewers, which Cosby had 18.5 and a 29% share. It actually finished 8th in the weekly ratings and was watched by an estimated 33 million people, making it the number one show in terms of actual viewers that week. It actually became the highest rated and most watched program in the history of the Fox network and remained in that position until January 1st, 1995. And even as of today, it's still the highest rated episode in the history of The Simpsons. But that's not the only reason why this particular episode was such a big deal, which finally brings us to talking about this particular episode of the show, Bart Gets an F, which was first broadcasted on October 11th, 1990, written by David Stern, the brother of Home Alone star Daniel Stern, who was about to have that movie come out about a month from now, and it's directed by David Silverman. Now in this episode, Bart's bad grades hit a crucial moment when he's told by Mrs. Krabappel and the school psychiatrist Dr. J. Lorton Pryor that he'll have to repeat the 4th grade if his grades don't get better. Hearing this, Bart tries his hardest to study for a history test and get a passing grade. Throughout the episode, Bart's trying everything from convincing Martin to help him in exchange for turning him into a cooler person, which backfires, to praying for a snowstorm the night before the test to make sure that he can have time to study, which that backfires because if you see the end of the episode, which we'll talk about a little bit here, it doesn't go the way Bart expects it. And keep in mind, this was back at the beginning of the show before anyone believed the series would last forever. So the idea of Bart repeating the 4th grade was a very serious thing back then. Not only would I would say that this is such a great episode, but it's in my top 20 favorite Simpsons episodes of all time. And I'll explain why. First off, the animation is beginning to show progress. As I said before, the first season's animation of The Simpsons ranged from good to, oh my god, this is horrible, depending on which episode you looked at. Here, you're beginning to see the animation becoming more fluent, it's better timed, more acceptable to what the show like this should give us. And second of all, the episode is unique in not only combining great comedy, but also great drama too. When the Nostalgia Critic did his top 11 favorite Simpsons episodes, and he put this at number 1, he perfectly summed up why this is such a great episode, stating that a lot of this comes from dealing with real life. And I'll delve into that again in a little bit, but he says this is the most dramatic episode they've ever done. There's no villain, there's no one element to play, it's just a tough slice of real life. Third, the comedy and the jokes are starting to work better. In the first season, a lot of the jokes weren't really timed out all that well, but starting with this episode, the jokes are becoming much more tighter and better organized. Lastly, and most importantly, we get to see a different side of Bart here that we're used to see. You know, he's known for being the underachiever and proud of it. I mean, there was a thing back then where, you know, schools were literally banning Bart Simpson shirts because of those statements. Like, nowadays, you could pretty much get away with that nowadays, but it was just an interesting time back then when people saw Bart Simpson as a threat to the children of the world, which, you know, that turned out not to be true. You know, just like a lot of arguments that people make, like, you know, the whole video games cause kids to turn into criminals. Just like, okay, buddy, whatever. But the point here is that most kids used to see Bart Simpson as the underachiever and proud of it. So the fact that he's actually taking the thought of being left back very seriously is really interesting to see. Like, he's trying his hardest to study, but fun things are happening all around him for the whole town, you know, from the whole town, like having that snow day jamboree outside of his window, to fantasizing about snow during the reading of the Declaration of Independence. I mean, the kid is trying his hardest, but just every possible distraction is facing him in every direction. And honestly, I feel like this is something that we can all relate to, because I'll bet some of us have actually had this happen, especially I've had this happen to me. I know for a fact that I was not a smart kid in school. And this was back when our education system wasn't as screwed up as it is now, but by the time I reached middle school, I just had to tell myself to just try as hard as I can in order for me to make it to high school and then eventually to graduate. And sometimes it works, other times not so much. It's just like I said, it's a tough slice of, like Nostalgia Critic said, I'm sorry, not me, but him. It's just a tough slice of real life. Like, you've got to accept what the world has to give you, and try your best to surpass it. I mean, but, you know, The Simpsons just found that way to capture that feeling of fear, how sometimes your best may just not be enough. And I think that's best summed up in the episode's ending, when Bart realizes that he's gotten another F, and he starts crying at the fact that this is the best he can do. You really feel for this kid. I mean, he's just devastated, and quite frankly, again, it's hard not to see why.
Well, Bart, it's a 59. That's another F.
Oh, no. I can't believe it.
I know. Another year together. Oh, it's gonna be hell. Well, what's the matter? Well, I would think you'd be used to failing by now.
No, you don't understand. I really tried this time. I really tried.
There.
This is as good as I can do, and I still failed.
All that hard work that you did, everything that you asked for happens, and this is the best you could do. Like, it really hit me. It didn't hit me at first when I first watched this episode, but as time has gone on, I've realized that, yes, this is something that happens in real life. I felt that. I felt that emotion. I felt that intensity whenever when that moment happened. And, you know, you could tell Mrs. Krabappel doesn't think that he's telling the truth at first, but then as the moment is going on here, she's realizing that, okay, yeah, he's really trying here. And even at the end, when Mr. Krabappel realizes that Bart's actually studying and ups his grade to a D- because he knew about George Washington's defeat to the French, you can make the argument that's a bit of a cop-out, but when you realize that this has happened to all of us at some point, when you're trying your hardest and this is the end result that you still get, it just works in a very effective way. And on another note, this is one of those episodes where I really like what they do with Mrs. Krabappel. Like, it's one of the several great episodes they've done with her, and they've done this as late as not just a couple years ago when they had the episode where Bart, finds her diary and thinks that she's talking about him, but she's talking about what was it, her cat? But he's thinking that she's writing about her. She's writing about him, and he's becoming a better kid in school. And Lisa has to make that difficult decision on whether or not to tell him the truth or not. And when she tells her the truth, it just devastates him. But then Flanders, who was dating Krabappel later on in the series, told her the story about how they were really going to move from Springfield because they couldn't take the Simpsons anymore. But Mrs. Krabappel said, "I have to stay here because people like Bart Simpson need me," essentially.
I have to stay here in Springfield because boys like Bart Simpson need me. Sweet, misunderstood boys who just need someone to recognize the basic goodness that's trapped inside them and is desperately trying to get out.
And that's what I really like about the latest seasons of The Simpsons, where they have really they've really gotten that magic back from the first couple of seasons. It's not completely back yet, but it's definitely in a better position where they were in the darker years of the show, which we'll eventually get to down the road here as we'll continue doing these over the years to come. But this is one of the first of several great Mrs. Krabappel episodes. It's definitely one that just shows how important the character was to the show and how it is a shame that we sadly weren't going to see her anymore after Marcia Wallace passed away in 2013. But no matter how you look at it, Bart Gets an F is an episode that I think works a lot better if you've watched it, and it's mostly because of what it's about. Because the show, and before the show went on forever, but despite that, this is the beginning where The Simpsons really starts to come into the area where they're at their finest. It finds a great mix of comedy, drama, real-life dilemmas, animation, and gives The Simpsons that edge that it needed to begin the process of becoming the show we've come to know and love. And Season 2 is also a pivotal year for the show in general because as we'll delve into later on here, this is the moment where the show really began to take this unique approach to it. Season 2 is such a unique season for this show. And it's so unique because of the experimental things that they do, not just from the storytelling, but some of the animation styles that we'll get into here, by just the comedy getting better too. This is a season that is so pivotal and doesn't really get a lot of major attention compared to some of the other seasons later on down the road. But I mean, this is a season that is pivotal and very important that we're going to delve into as we go through the rest of the month here, because Season 2 is such a pivotal month. We're only just beginning here, but Bart Gets an F is one of my favorite Simpsons episodes of all time, and it's really not hard to see why.
We're proud of you, boy.
Thanks, Dad. But part of this D- belongs to God.